Hello and welcome to Let's Talk Property with me, Heather Hilda Darling, on Radio Reverb 97.2 FM and DAB. I have a great programme for you today. We have British Olympic gymnast and Strictly winner Louis Smith and Matthew Hall from Black Sticks Blue. So what are we going to be talking about today? Well, research reveals that we Brits are actually grown-up kids when it comes to trying new foods. 60% of UK adults admit they found a way to avoid trying new foods. And some of those ways of doing that are sneaking it in the bin, feeding it to the dog, or hiding it in a napkin. 30% have admitted they don't like a food even if they haven't tried it since they were a child. They're also frightened of ending up in an embarrassing situation. So let's head over to the studio now and see what Louis and Matthew have to say on the subject. Perhaps we ought to check out what they had for breakfast to start with.
Started off with a good breakfast because we are starting with a discussion about foods, aren't we?
Well, I mean, me personally, I left myself a little bit, not enough time. I quickly put some bacon in the pan and had a bacon sandwich. Nothing too glorious, but it's filled me up ready for the start of the day.
Oh, good. Matthew, what about you? Did you have breakfast?
I'm a porridge boy.
Me too. The jumbo rolled oats, they're brilliant, aren't they?
Absolutely. Northern style today.
Okay. So, good morning. I'm Heather Hilda Darling. I'm here to talk to you about the recent research that you did. So, Matthew, can we start with you first and tell us about the research that Black Sticks Blue did regarding food and us Brits?
Absolutely. So, Black Sticks Blue as a cheese is 16 years old this year, yet it remains a largely undiscovered foodie gem. And when you introduce somebody to it for the first time, that all too common response is, "Oh, I don't like blue cheese. It's not for me." And we know from sampling it with people, if we can get them past that fear factor to start with, and we get them to put some Black Sticks Blue in their mouth, the next thing that they say is, "Oh, that's really creamy. I like that. It's not like a Stilton." And so the research that we undertook was really all about trying to understand this behavior. What drives it? Why are we seeing that fear factor? And it turns out we're really just a nation of big kids when it comes to trying new foods. We're scared, we're embarrassed, we don't want to put a foot wrong. And so the easiest option for 30% of us is to say, "Oh."
Do you think this might have occurred because through childhood, for example, I'm of a generation where we used to have the triangular cheeses, the creamy cheeses, and the square cheeses wrapped in plastic, which the cheese looked more like plastic itself sometimes. And is it just something that we're afraid of trying because we've just been brought up with something else?
Absolutely. A huge part of what we found is that nostalgia, what we've grown up with, what our parents have given us when we're younger, drives our flavors when we're older. And if we've tried something as a kid or been told we don't like something as a kid, then as an adult, we still hold on to that. And most in the research was saying their taste buds didn't mature until they were about 18 years old. So we've got this huge part of our life that we're missing out on. And I think we see that with all sorts of foods, people not trying it once they've thought they don't like it.
But if people don't like the look of it, is it worth doing these sort of blind tests where people can't actually see what they're eating? Can they not just, the smell, we can hardly put a peg on our noses while we're tasting it, but there are all these different, all our different, whether we can smell, see, etc. Is there not a different way of us tasting it?
You're absolutely right. There's traditionally those four major senses that we've got in terms of the flavors that we pick up in food. Black Sticks Blue delivers that fifth flavor now, which is known as umami. And so if you actually sneak it into somebody's cooking, that's one of the best ways of getting around those senses, because half of people say, if it smells, I don't want to try it. If it looks moldy, I don't want to try it. And, the challenge for for people this Christmas is, what can you do with that cauliflower cheese? Can you throw something in there, add a bit of oomph, and take it to the table without somebody actually knowing you put? And it's an interesting one.
You're quite right. I mean, my mum used to bring us up on cauliflower cheese, chicken in cheese, cheese on toast. Everything was with cheese, I think. And of course, we used to get quite a lot of good cheeses up in Lancashire anyway. Louis, can I turn to you? Are you a foodie fan?
I am a foodie fan, I will admit. I think over the years, I've definitely been a little bit more adventurous. I was a little bit stuck in my ways, obviously being an athlete. I kind of try to only put into my body the things that I need. So it was very one-dimensional. Whereas now, I do like to push the boat out a little bit and experiment. And yeah, big fan of my different cheeses, especially coming around festive time. A little bit like you, I was kind of, if I was brought up on kind of cheeses, it was the very straightforward kind of the mild kind of plasticky kind of cheese, or the cheddar cheese, or cheese string, something quite simple like that. But yeah, now it's I like to kind of push the boat out, but I do get people's apprehensiveness, especially with blue cheese, and you see the mold and you think, is this something that my palate is gonna enjoy? But yeah, I think we should, as humans, probably kind of step outside our comfort zone a little bit and try these new things.
And surely, as an athlete, you've travelled around the world, you've been to lots of different places. How did you adapt to what I could call foreign food?
I was very nervous trying different foods from around the world. I mean, I've like you said, I've travelled and I've seen some pretty unusual types of food. I mean, I've been served sheep's tongue, scorpions. I've seen a lot, and being a young lad, probably about 18, 19, those are the kind of things that kind of keep me cemented in my routine ways. It makes me want to go home, and I miss the simple things in life. Whereas now I'm at a stage where I'd actually quite like to go back to those places and experience those different types of cuisines and foods. But yeah, I've seen some things in my time.
Yeah. Well, of course, as a kid, I used to be fed ox tongue quite a lot as well, which I haven't touched in donkey's years, but that's beside the point. Matthew, what do you do when you decide to sort of create a new cheese? I mean, obviously, we've all heard about the French cheeses, the Bries, the Swiss cheeses, Emmentaler, the Gruyères, etc. How do you persuade us Brits to try something new?
So it's an interesting challenge. But we're trying to really understand with this piece of research here. What is it that's going to make us try things? And I think trying to put it into a situation, as Lou was saying, then what people are saying in terms of, we are wanting to try new things, but we need them in an experience where we're a little bit more, we don't have that embarrassing factor. So if we're abroad, travel is one of the big opportunities for people trying new cheeses. So the continent's a great example of people being much more open with what kind of cheeses they'll try. So that explosion in continental travel is bringing those tastes back home. And someone's had a Brie or a Gruyere whilst they've been on holiday, and then they come back and say, oh, actually, there's more to life than plastic cheese. And maybe I can be a little bit more adventurous at home, because I think the big thing that the research pulled out was this fear of embarrassment that we've got when trying new foods. And it goes hand in hand with trying something when you're abroad, because you're not around your friends, and so you don't have to worry about keeping up with the Joneses, so to speak. When you're on, you can kind of forget that terrible experience and come home and put the slippers back on.
The point is, a lot of these restaurants nowadays, and even pop-up restaurants, do sort of these taster menus, don't they? So if you could get a whole group of friends together to do a taster menu with all the stuff that they've never tasted, do you think that would get over our embarrassment a little bit better? Because actually, if we're all embarrassed together, it's not quite so bad. You just don't want to stick out like a sore thumb with your friends, do you?
Absolutely. So the more we take food into that experience-based dining occasion, so we're seeing it with blue cheese now, and kind of cheese fondues, as you're able to dip something else in, and that's where Laxatics really comes into its own, and that it's a product that pairs well. So if you're having that fondue situation and you can dip in some beef or some chocolate or something that we know is a really safe product for us. We're just getting a bit of a flavour hit. We're adding a little bit of oomph to that meal, and it's in a much safer environment. And then you can start to put your big boy pants on and kind of say,
I really ought to dig out my old cheese fondue set from the 80s. I think I've still got it tucked away somewhere. And that we used to have loads of Saturday night dinners with friends with the cheese fondues, and it's something you often do on the ski slopes as well, isn't it? Louis, have you ever tried the fondues, cheese fondues or chocolate fondues?
I've never tried a cheese fondue. I've had a chocolate fondue.
Uh-huh.
But yeah, never tried a cheese one. And like you said, the whole skiing vibe where people are dipping all sorts of breads and meats in those cheese fondues, they look fantastic. But yeah, I've never had the chance to try one yet. But yeah, they do look great.
I suppose one of the paradoxes as well is, we're all getting these high quality, do it all kitchens, fantastic microwaves, cookers that seem to cook as well. And yet we're still so shy about trying new foods. It's all very well have a beautiful kitchen, but if you never use it, and waltzing into the kitchen and not doing anything apart from perhaps some cheese on toast, maybe, it seems a bit of a waste. How could we overcome that?
I think it's that big question as to whether or not you're a food kind of prepper or a food hacker. I don't know which category you would fall into, Heather, but I think as we've gone into lockdown, one of the biggest things that we've seen in terms of food trends is that people have got bored. We've got, as Brits, we've got this repertoire of half a dozen meals that we just cook on rotation. So we're looking for something that can give it a little bit more, because we're not going out into the restaurants in quite the same way. And that's where we've seen cheese come into the meal solutions a lot more. And I think we're trying to encourage people to just season these meals with a little bit of something in like we said, cauliflower cheese or a spaghetti bolognese. You can do something that just throws a cheese in that you wouldn't normally, and it will give a different dimension to that dish.
Yeah, that's absolutely true. And maybe if we see our heroes and heroines, cooking with food like this on Instagram or Facebook, it will encourage us, because we all tend to follow a little bit, don't we? So if we know somebody likes adding a little bit of blue cheese to pep up their macaroni cheese, it might persuade us perhaps to do something similar. So just to finish off, because the time goes so quickly, it's unbelievable. Where can we find more information about your cheeses, Matthew?
Lactixblue.co.uk. You can find some tips on there on how to use cheese in your meals, a little bit more information on the research, so that you can try and not be such a grown-up kid when it comes to your food, and try and push the boundaries out a little bit more and give your meals a little bit of oomph this Christmas.
Okay. And Louis, just to finish with you, thank you for joining me today. What would you suggest to people who perhaps haven't tried something? What would you be your persuasive tactic?
I would say, given the year that we've had, and the fact that we've kind of been pushed into our homes for a lot longer than we'd used to, I would say, you're probably getting bored of the same meals, the same couple of meals that you keep trying. So, spice up the life a little bit. This is the perfect time to perhaps try the odd one or two new flavors and introduce those to your diet. And you never know, you might just like it and change that meal for your life.
That's brilliant advice. Thank you. Thank you both for spicing up my morning this morning as well. It's been an early start. So have a great day, and thank you for talking to me.
Pleasure. Thank you, Heather.
Thank you.
So thank you to my guests today, Louis Smith and Matthew Hall from Black Sticks Blue. And thank you for joining me on Let's Talk Property 97.2 FM and DAB.